My lecture will refer to curatorial and institutional practice of the protagonist of the exhibition. In the show that is here in ArtsFit, you can see Tatarchuk in collaborations with different Ukrainian artists. You can see Tatarchuk practicing art, but I think that a few words about his curatorial and institutional activity also sheds a kind of interesting light on his position as an artist. Because here we deal with a man who was trained as an artist, who was active as a performer, starting on the break of 1980s and 90s. So, in a way, experienced artist, but someone who in Poland is now maybe strongly recognized as a director of Galereyi Labirint and as a curator. Not only because he was running the institution for 15 years. Here we see the photo from documentation of performance called Way to the East. We are showing this piece in the exhibition. It's important because it's a kind of first available record of performative activity of Tatarchuk. But if we jump in time to the year 2010, we find Waldemar Tatarchuk in Galereyi Labirint in Lublin. An institution with very special history and status, and maybe some light of the peculiarity of Galereyi Labirint could be taken from the project that took place in Labyrinth last year. The project was called 100 Years in Labyrinth, and it was launched in 2024 on 50th anniversary of the institution. So from the very start, we see some paradox that it's 50th anniversary, and the project is called 100 Years in Labyrinth, and this paradox brings us to the entrance to quite special curatorial and institutional strategy of Tatarchuk. And maybe small comment, because it doesn't happen too often that the artists who jump on the other side of the barricade and became a quite important figure in institutional work, gallery director, is coming back to practicing art. It's not even sure if it's allowed, if it's possible. So this is this very special moment that we can see at the exhibition behind us. So going back to anniversary project, it had very special construction. Thank you. So Gallery Labyrinth, the space of Labyrinth is divided into two main parts, and between the two parts there is a passage. Here we see this passage and the gate that is actually work on art, built especially for this exhibition by Robert Kuśmierowski, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I do. So behind the gate you see the part of the exhibition that was devoted to the past 50 years of the gallery. So a space that contained its history, and the history of the labyrinth was very strongly connected to neo-avant-garde, to progressive line of of art in Poland, and especially in the 1980s. It has like very unique status. In 1980s in Poland there was how to call it in English, a martial law. So the like regular communist government was replaced by the army. It was reaction to let's say opposition movement. So during the martial law, generally Polish artists were boycotting all the official institutions, and this boycott was pretty strong in the sense that generally artists who expected respect from the art community did not go to exhibit in any state-owned public institutions, and Labyrinth in Lublin was perhaps the only exception at that time. And it's a long story. I will not explain it because it's too complex. How the gallery gained this level of autonomy and authority, but in the 80s it was kind of oasis of free art in Poland, but also art with a really strong avant-garde profile. So in 2024, Tatarchuk organizing this anniversary exhibition in this part of the labyrinth was trying maybe not tell all this story because the story was like too long to fit in any gallery, but create a kind of installation constructed out of works of arts, out of artistic intervention that represented, let's say, the spirit of the labyrinth in past 50 years. So the exhibition also had a quite special spatial structure, because here you see that part of the gallery is part of the walls are painted black. The upper side is white, and there are those works exhibited on an architectural construction in the middle of the room. So the scheme worked like that on these white walls in the upper part of the gallery, there were exhibited works from Galeria Labirynт collection, and these were works of artists who are connected with the history of the gallery, but who are at the time of opening this project, who are already dead. Lower, on the black parts, there were also artists who are connected to the history of the gallery, but those who are alive and who are invited to discuss what should be shown within the exhibition. Some of them were producing new works, some were discussing with curator how they should be represented. So as you see, there were two layers, those ancestors who were forming the identity, the profile of the gallery in late 70s and in 80s, and in this lower part, let's say the survivors, usually most of them like very famous artists, of course, the leading avant-garde artists on the Polish scene. Another element of the exhibition were those projections that you see in the upper part of the gallery. There were documentation of performative actions of the happenings that took place in Labyrinth in the past. It was important part of the exhibition because like interest in performative arts was one of the key elements of identity of this institution, and Labyrinth in 70s, 80s and 90s was probably the most important like center when performative art could reach the wider public, wider the small circles of avant-garde artists. So this historical part was built with this, let's say, three elements: the dead ancestors, the living masters, and this performative documentations that actually has not been described. It was kind of impression, so it wasn't shown as an archive when you study each performance with long description. It was rather representing the spirit, the movement, which was pointed by the curators as key elements of the identity of the place, but also a kind of say fundament on which Tatarchuk was building his version of Labyrinth, starting from year 2010, when he became director of the institution. So here we go through the gate again to this second part of the gallery space. And as you remember, the project was called 100 Years of Labyrinth, so we've just seen a first 50, and being in the exhibition, it was clear that this another 50 years refers to the future of the gallery. And here you see the space devoted to this next 50 years of Labyrinth, but before you were entering into this space of the future, you were passing the present time, and those videos, these collections of videos, they represent more or less the present day or the recent years of the activity of the gallery through video works. So present day, recent years, that means, let's say, the era of Waldemar Tatarczuk. It was also not by accident that it was represented through video works, because, again, one of the program line of the gallery was, aside with the performative arts, was a new media. Because, as I said, the Gallery Labyrinth, since it was created in 70s, was always oriented towards, let's say, experimental art, and new media experiment was, let's say, part of this field of interest. So you are going through this present day. And the rest of the space was, let's say, open field from different activities that, in the moment of opening the show, were not determined, and this is quite characteristic for the way Waldemar was running the institution, being open for what can happen. Like opening space for the unexpected, for the artist's intervention, for this that will come, like building some kind of structure, but not planning everything to the end. It's a space devoted for the future, so it will not make sense to determine it to precisely. The graffiti you see on the wall are coming actually from the previous project, when Galeria Labirint got totally opened for literally everyone who wanted to come and leave his or her trace in a gallery space. Show video, write something on the wall, bring artwork, bring painting, do graffiti. And as you see, it has not been erased before the next project started. It's also quite peculiar, but it is also the way this institution has been run during Valdemar time. And there was, like you see, there were some very simple structure that later got filled with different artworks, different exhibitions. I will not story that everything that happened in this like next 50 years, because I rather refer here to the very special logic of constructing art project, of celebrating anniversary, in which, of course, the past is somehow summoned. It's important because it gives some direction, but the next steps are not determined, and they were about to be defined by the next generation of artists. And the way that this anniversary was celebrated, it didn't come from nowhere. It didn't come just out of the blue. And for me, like, let's say, breakthrough project in recent history of Labyrinth happened earlier in year 2016, and here is its title. It was called Democracy. The year 2016 was quite special in the recent political history of Poland, because in previous year, in 2015, the conservative, nationalistic right political forces took over the government, also the presidential palace, and they started, let's say, reconstruction of political and social system in Poland, like heading towards more or less the same direction that, let's say, probably Donald Trump will be a good point of reference. Maybe Viktor Orban and present-day Hungary even more. So in general, like the right-wing government openly were questioning liberal democracy, pointing that it has to be reformed, and that the country requires a serious institutional change. So in 2016, it was just the beginning of the process of transformation, and first on the front line we found institutions like law system, courts, educational system, of course, and on top of everything, media, because you can imagine first things go first, but everybody knew that at some point this process will reach the realm of culture and culture institution. So in 2016, Tatarchuk called to the Labyrinth, organized in Labyrinth, a kind of how to call it, a symposium, a forum, open gathering for people of culture in Poland, calling us. I was there too at the time, for discussion how the art community and sector of culture will react for this process, the process that quite openly was going towards maybe not like finishing the democracy, but for sure like changing it drastically, because the understanding of the notion of democracy and especially democratic institutions between liberals and right wing were very diverse. Diverse to that extent that from liberal point of view, what right wing was proposing didn't look like a democracy anymore. So there was this gathering, and it was actually a first reaction in the Polish institutional world, because after taking over power by the right wing, everybody got kind of paralyzed. Especially that this switch was rather unexpected. Nobody was really taking seriously that it could happen. And as you can imagine, generally the art community, also the whole institutional system in Poland was rather located on this liberal side of, let's say, public discussion, and in situation when new government was openly saying that they want to like exchange the elites in Poland, that they are about to create new elites that will be more conservative, more nationalistic, and that they have completely different vision of culture, a vision in which culture like has its duties, and the duty of culture is to support national identity rather than, for example, criticizing it. It was very clear that in some time in the perspective there is going to be a like huge change, almost a revolution on the institutional scene. So this gathering in Lublin was actually the first public discussion. You know, what to do, what should we do in this situation. It was very interesting moment. Also kind of image of being helpless, being scared. But along with the discussion, there was an exhibition called the same, Democracy, a huge exhibition devoted to discussing the notion of democracy, like asking question what it really is, and how strongly we are ready to defend this value. How do we understand it? And like a gathering, this exhibition also was kind of gathering, like open invitation for artists to take a stand, to bring their voices, a little bit like this gathering of cultural producers, of institutional directors. And let's say that from this discussion, that it didn't bring a clear outcome that could be implemented like universally in all the institutions in Poland. Quite contrary in this not really pleasant political situation. Most of the institutions choose strategy of just trying to be relatively quiet and wait what will happen. but it wasn't a case of Galeria Labirint. And now I will move a few years towards the present day. So we are now in year 2020, and I will show you a combination of 3 projects that happened in Labyrinth in that year at the same time, like creating quite peculiar combination. And I think this combination also tells a lot how Labyrinth was, let's say, negotiating or looking for a balance between a regular mission of art institution, understood as a, for example, showing important artists, doing regular exhibition on the one hand, and on the other hand, being ready to react, to take very active part in public discussions, to be critical, to be present in the present day. Here you see work called Facade by Monika Sosnowska. Monika Sosnowska, who is a very prolific Polish artist, very well known internationally, not very often exhibiting in Poland because usually her projects are quite expensive, demanding also in technical terms. So you don't see her exhibition too often locally. And in 2020, one of her works, The Facade, has been shown in Labyrinth. The Facade is actually steel construction, a replica of one of the facade of the modernist building from, I don't know, 60s or 70s, doesn't matter. Then first built by the artist and then deformed with heavy equipment, like it would be something very soft and plastic. So it's a work that could be read as a kind of melancholic elegy for the modernism, for the modernist dream of very, let's say, very logical, clear structures of something that is becoming soft. Or you can also read it as a kind of work about ruins of the facade of the certain social project that is connected with modernism. It happened that the opening of this exhibition was planned for the very same time when the first lockdown was implemented in Poland. So this spectacular work was there at the beginning. The public couldn't see. So, like many exhibitions at the time, it was this like ghostly presence in gallery that was not available for the public. Later it became available. It was also the scene of a performative intervention, because we remember that interest in performance art was always one of the key program lines of the Labyrinth. And then it's still year 2020, but already not the beginning of the pandemic, but the autumn, when in Poland there is a huge outbreak of social protests provoked by a move from the conservative government who restricted already very radical abortion laws in Poland. Before the change of the law, it was one of the most, let's say, conservative regulation in Europe. After the change, it became comparable to, I don't know what, probably only to the Middle East, and this combined probably with the frustration generated by the COVID lockdowns, provoked really massive protests. Protests in which feminism, women's rights was a key, of course, key element of the narration, but in general they were like a really strong emotional reaction toward this conservative march towards this Trumpist, Orban-like version of democracy, and then the same year this what you see on the roof of the labyrinth, this feast with a tender, it was a symbol of feminist protest, so-called women's strike. So at the end of this year, Labyrinth opened an exhibition. Maybe it's not the right term to call it. Let's say a project, a situation called exhibition. Okay.
Of course, it's the gallery.
Yeah, but I would also call it a kind of exhibition as a demonstration, because the project was called "You Will Never Walk Alone." It was also one of the slogans that was used on the women's strike and protest in the late 2020, and the idea of the project was a totally open call for people who were taking part in the protests to bring to the gallery materials that were being used during street demonstrations. Banners, slogans, but also visual documentation of the protest, artworks also, but not only, because those protests, they had also very strong visual representation. They were very much about language, about jokes. They were in a way very vulgar, and it was something new. This massive use of vulgar words in public protest, but used sometimes in a very funny and subversive way. So, in fact, this idea of post-artistic strategies where social and political activism and gesture that could be read as an artistic gesture really blurred, and you could see it on a street. So in gallery, as you see, the response was like huge, and materials started to coming from all over the country. It became like a huge representation of the aesthetics of this 2020 protests, of their poetics, of the language that was being used. And the gallery was not only full of signs like you see here, slogans and text, but also full of sound and voices, because people were being asked also to bring video documentations. So part of the gallery, like you see, was full of projections that were bringing these images from the street, and behind the gallery walls you could see the same, because the protests were still going on. And as you see, Monika Sosnowski facade is still there. All of a sudden, it got like overtaken by the social situation. The couple of weeks before, it was this minimalistic, super elegant and huge monumental sculpture in a white cube, and the next day you see it in completely different context. And I'm underlining it because those two words somehow met in this project, like showing important contemporary artists being concentrated on the form, on the art discourse, and being also open to somehow engage this discourse into something that could be seen as a different order, this different realm. The materials from the demonstration, when you don't use this, that you don't see difference between professional artists and people who are simply painting banners and slogans at their homes. There are no hierarchy at all on the demonstration. Everybody are equal, and as you see, also the artwork is changing its meaning because in context of this very loudly, very intense exhibition built out of materials from the demonstration, from the street protest. All of a sudden, this work could be, for example, seen as a facade of patriarchy that is getting soft and is falling into kind of ruins, or maybe all the old conservative social structures. This facade that is too small to really contain all the social forces and energy that is represented in younger generation and in Polish nation. Also, I think it's important to underline that bringing all those street banners, also the video documentation, meant that the gallery was full of anti-governmental slogans, words sometimes very vulgar and pointed directly to the authorities, which meant that in political terms this project was really highly provocative and was like kind of declaration of war, because when you enter the public gallery and the first thing you hear is someone shouting "fuck law and order." Law and order, it's a name of the party that was in power at the same time. It's like asking for troubles, because it's also important to say that back then in 2020, the right-wing government, who up to that moment was in total control and they had big support, they totally lost their nerves. They weren't prepared for this scale of protests, that whole cities will be blocked by the protesters, that so many young people who before were passive, because of course there were protests and demonstrations before 2020, but the thing with previous protests were that there was a certain generation profile of the protesters, and I was part of a lot of those demonstrations, and I was finding myself as one of the youngest people on the street. There were demonstrations of really older generation of people who are already retired, and the government didn't really impress the government, because they saw that the young people are quite indifferent, that they are not joining those protests. You can imagine that protest on which people in their 40s or 50s are juniors, are the youngest people. They lack certain level of energy, and in 2020, all of the sudden, streets were full of very young people. So it was like clear sign for the government that they don't have a future, because young generation is rejecting them. So they were reacting for the women's strike and this wave of protests very nervously. So of course the institution that were so openly like joining the protests, inviting participants of the demonstrations to actually extend their activity in the gallery, was a very risky move. And after, because like I said, lot of artists was taking part in this protest, producing also visual materials that were being used on the street. After a few months, you had like really enormous amount of artifacts and visual materials connected to this movement. So artists were trying to exhibit it, and in a lot of institutions, even though probably curators and directors in fact were agreeing with the movement, they were scared to show it, because each institution that actually decided to like give a space to artworks bringing motifs from the women's strike had to be aware that there will be consequences in terms of cutting the budget, mostly sometimes something more serious. In Labyrinth there was one more project, because remember that there is a facade that has been exhibited there for months, but became part of this women's strike exhibition. And in the second part of the gallery there was a project called Menage, two-person show done by Maurycy Gomulicki and Karol Galiszewski. Two male artists, both doing a show about a male desire, doing very erotic show. One of them, Karol Galiszewski, is a iconic queer artist in Poland. Iconic also in that sense that he's not only active as an artist, but also as a curator, as a publisher of a magazine devoted to LGBT culture, and he's running also an archive in which he gathers like result of research and investigation of history of the queer culture in Poland. So a kind of man who is also almost like an institution. So Karol Galiszewski was one artist in the show, and Maurycy Gomulicki is like definitely heterosexual male artist, definitely in that sense that large part of his works actually are thematizing the male desire, but in say very joyful and so it was also very interesting context, because you know, behind the wall you had this exhibition as a as a demonstration, like representing of really a huge rebellion of a Polish women who decided they will not agree anymore for this, let's say, conservative order. But on the other side of the wall, and as you saw, it was a chaotic exhibition, totally democratic, without any curatorial selection, or and the question what is art and what is not was put totally aside. And on the other part of the wall, you had this very, in a way, classical exhibition of two very experienced artists producing well executed artworks. So let's say a normal institutional project, but interesting in this context, in that sense, that it was about actually reinventing the masculinity in Poland. There was a big question whether a different kind of masculinity is possible, a queer one, or maybe hetero masculinity, but defined differently, more openly, more joyfully, not connected to the power, to the oppression. And from my point of view, it was very important because, of course, when you were thinking about women's strike and this rebellion of the women, it was clear that the, let's say, new construction of society is impossible if we will not reflect of masculinity. That masculinity is always like far behind in terms of reflection and theory, behind the feminism. Feminism has a long tradition of reflection about the position of women of society, and the other part, the masculinity, really lacks reflection, lacks theory. So this free exhibition that met in the same place at the same time, for me they represent in a very good way the idea what Labyrinth became during the time of Tatarchuk. So it became the institution that did not abandon like this its expected mission of bringing simply interesting, well-known artists, but at the same time institution that was trying to be part of what is really happening and reacting very quickly. This is also important that Waldemar developed way of running institution, allowing him to be part of the events now, not 2 years after, not in next year, but in the very moment when things were happening, just like it happened during the women's strike, and just like it happened a few months before. These are still slides from the menage in Gomlicki exhibition, and this is a slide from the project that took place. It was year the same year, only a few months earlier. Because also in this very stormy year or 2020, there was not only pandemics, not only women's strike in autumn, but also a presidential election and very brutal, intense campaign, in which the candidate of the right wing of the political discourse, at some point decided to use heavily homophobic discourse in his campaign. And shortly before election himself, the candidate went so far that during a public speech he dehumanized the LGBT community, saying that this is a quote that LGBT, these are not people. This is only ideology. And it was supported by his circle, who was pointing that all those discourse about human rights, equality, it's a liberal bullshit, and we have to finish it. So it was quite shocking, at least for the Polish standard established in the past, to hear such a thing from the public figures in the public speeches. So when those words that actually LGBT people are not human beings were said publicly, only after 2 weeks in Labyrinth. Labyrinth opened a project called We Are Human Beings. And in the project took part like far over 100 artists, not only from Poland, also international ones. And all those participants answered the open call issued by the institution. So if you think about like institutional mechanics, it was quite amazing, because you have a public speech during presidential campaign, and after just 2 weeks, the gallery is totally full of the artworks that came from all over the Poland, that came from the abroad. And everything is exhibited under this slogan: "We are human beings," like a proof of humanity. That meant also, of course, like changing the institution program totally, because as you understand, before the presidential candidate said those words, no one could plan this kind of project, and it became also the part of the way that the gallery was reacting, doing those open calls, being ready to change the program if the situation tells you that we cannot do business as usual. Then the situation is demanding that someone would stood up and raise the voice. That we simply cannot go on with, I don't know, the project that we planned 2 years ago, because all of a sudden they simply stop being relevant to the situation. For example, when the situation is like that someone has to prove that he or her is a human being, and this turning the gallery into kind of agora, forum, when a lot of people can find its place. When you don't use a classical curatorial criteria, which artwork is better, which is less important. When you apply completely different mechanics, it became part of Labyrinth's strategy. Saying that, I have to admit that I'm not talking here about a lot of much more standard projects that during all this time were also happening in the Labyrinth, and. For me, that was also interesting that actually Labyrinth and Tatarchuk showed that you don't really have to give up one to do the other. quite contrary. If you take active part in social and political life, art, even art that was not created with political intention. And what we saw before, the Monika Sosnowski facade, could be very good example, because Monika, actually, she never explained her artworks. She gives those tautological titles, like the facade is called facade, and he's not building any political program around it. So you could see works like this as almost totally formalistic. And the exhibition that I was showing later, Menasza by Gomulicki and Raliszewski, could be seen as a just like very spectacular show about erotic fantasies of two male protagonists. But if you decide to at the same time be open for what is really happening here and now on the street behind the walls of the institution, all of a sudden those exhibitions, those artworks that could be seen as something formalistic, they also becoming more relevant. And that was the part that Labyrinth was functioning during Waldemar's time. These are still slides from We Are Human Beings. And we're going to the last chapter of my talks, another case study that I want to bring here is a project called This Is Just an Exhibition. That's how you did translate it to English. That was the English title. Waldemar?
It was just an exhibition.
Yeah. So the project was open in 2023 as a part of Kyiv Biennale, and it had not only very distinctive construction, but also very special dramaturgy. So what you see here is a space of the Gallery Labyrinth, almost empty. Almost empty. There was filled with architectural structure that actually were recycled from the previous exhibition and were forming a kind of landscape that with a little imagination could be taken maybe by the urban landscape or just a structure that could host some artworks show. And on the walls there were projections showing the sky, and projections were done by Waldemar himself. So you were entering gallery. The exhibition was already open, and you are discovering that there are no artworks in this show. There's only a kind of structure. This blue sky projected on videos, and this architecture in the middle. So and curator of the show was Waldemar himself, and at the same time you knew that it's a show that is supposed to present Ukrainian art, and with a special criteria of selection devoted mostly, almost exclusively, to Ukrainian artists serving in the army, and this empty space waiting for the artworks became a kind of art installation itself. So So Waldemar went quite far toward this border, dividing a role of curator and role of the artist. But I would extend this move also to many other projects, also those that were not directly curated by him, rather the way that whole institution was curated, who became a place that that was very performative. Very flexible and always processual, because the idea of this exhibition was that first we preparing the structure, we waiting for the artworks, and artworks appear. They appear in time also because some of the participants are really on the front line and they need time to, I don't know, to send anything, to do anything, that we are not in regular situation in which simply organize the transport, we have dates and deadline, that it doesn't work like that anymore. And in time, of course, this space started to be really fill up with artworks that started coming. And the exhibition is becoming more dense and dense in time, and also it became like the model for quite a few projects that has been realized in Labyrinth. Those open structures, exhibitions that are not productions that actually are finished on the day of the opening. Quite contrary, this exhibition on the day of the opening, it was really beginning of the process, not the final, because that's how we usually do the exhibitions. The opening date is in a way it's finish of our work. Here the work just began. So, and the next step in this show is that after works from Ukrainian artists started coming to Lublin, started being exhibited, the next step were also including works by Polish artists. Here we see the work from Agnieszka Polska, but there were more of them, like joining this project in this second wave as in position of supported position of artists who are doing gesture of solidarity, even though the correct me, Waldemar, if I'm wrong, almost all the artworks by Polish artists were done before the full-scale invasion. After? I also get back to this project. This is not the exhibition, to point like two things. One is this processual way of doing shows that became something that you could find almost exclusively in Labyrinth. I mean, the exhibitions that start, but they have no determined end. And they develop through the whole time of being available to the public. The exhibition that change, that evolve, that are also open for what will happen, how the artists will react, what they will bring, maybe also what time will tell us how we should go on with the show according of what is going on. What is going on outside. This is the one thing, and another thing is that it was a project devoted to Ukrainian art, and this dialogue with Ukrainian art scene was another important program line. Basically, from the beginning of the cadency of Tatarchuk, but it was getting more and more stronger and intense in time, especially after 2014. So during these 15 years between 2010 and 25, Labyrinth also became also, among other things, one of these key places where Polish public could meet artistic practice from artists from Ukraine. Another place that could be pointed is Gallery Arsenal in Białystok. That's probably the two most important hubs. But Labyrinth became this place when you go to learn about Ukrainian art. If you are not going to the Ukraine itself in Poland, and probably it was the strongest presence of Ukrainian art among all the Polish institutions, and I'm underlining it also because you can see a certain logic. Of course, it could be explained by the interest of Tatarchuk in Ukrainian scene, but I see something more, because you see this line, like being ready to be socially engaged. Being ready to discuss the condition of democracy, standing for the civil and human rights if needed, like in this case of project, we are human beings, and this engagement in presenting Ukrainian art, I see as a part of one paradigm, because for me it is connected, and one has to admire that in Labyrinth it was seen before other people were seeing it. For example, Ukrainian case is so connected with the condition of democracy. I mean, it became quite clear for everybody after outbreak of full-scale invasion, but it was not that clear before, even not after 2014. Like hardly anybody saw it in Poland. It took like escalating the war totally. So this fact would be understood, and at the time Gallery Labyrinth was like, let's say, ready to continue this dialogue with Ukrainian scene, because it took years of developing relations, connections, doing research. Just briefly before I jumped into this project, this is just an exhibition. I showed two slides from the open group project Repeat After Me, the project that was in 2024 representing Poland at the Venice Biennale, but I think it's important to underline that it had its premiere in Labyrinth, and probably if
European premiere.
Yeah, I mean a Polish premiere. That first it was shown there, and probably if there would not be exhibition Labyrinth, this idea of selecting this project to represent Poland at the Venice Biennale would not happen. So that's why I'm underlining that in terms of dialogue with Ukrainian art scene, Labyrinth was doing this like daily job. This grassroots job, not only spectacular shows of stars, but showing artists like on a daily basis. Let's say differently that in Labyrinth, one of the things that I perceive as a success of this strategy was the fact that this gallery managed to like step out of this logic, who is star, who is not star. Of course, in Labyrinth, during these 15 years, there was a lot of stars. I mean, big names, Polish, international, but the point is that this gallery stopped being about stars. It also stopped being about producing shows that had to be like totally successful in this term that we have this like super well designed product, especially that some of the exhibition became not really products but were process, something that is going on, something that is alive and evolving. So you don't have this moment when you open the exhibition and see, oh, this is our super cool institutional proposal. It was rather always invitation to be engaged in something, to be part of something, to participate. This is the I think quite unique institutional model. Unique because it's very difficult. It means that you have to be ready to do a revolution in your program, to overcome all the formal difficulties that is coming with this kind of strategy. That you also expose yourself to political risk because you really provoke authorities taking sometimes very openly some side of the political conflict. So of course I understand that not each gallery director, not every institution was ready to take this kind of stand. Even though I was talking about it when I was showing this project Democracy from 2016. So I was telling you that there was this gathering and everybody were scared because everybody were thinking that they are coming for us, and in fact it happened only a few years later because it didn't happen instantly, but after a few years when the government already took care about media, educational system, about courts. It came the turn also for art institution, and they have been taken one by one, and usually without any resistance. So this strategy of trying to be quiet, not provoke, didn't work at all. So probably this strategy that even with all the risk and difficulties that it brings you with was much more right. And the last thing, like going to the show that we did here, I see the key to the strategy of employing a lot of tools that are taken not from the institutional world, but rather from the artistic world. That this idea of running the institution, being a little bit more performative artist than say someone who tries to practice power over art. Of course, we accuse very often curators that there are power-greedy figures who are trying to control art. So Labyrinth became very little about controlling, but very much about creating and participating with art. Because the key idea here was that if art will be something passive, people will lose trust in art. That it has to be something that in which you can participate, and on the other hand, something that is not ignoring what is going on around it. It's not alienated, because again, then people will lose the trust in art, and probably the only ones that would stay with us would be, I don't know, rich people and collectors trying to find in this world something that will prove their status, and probably it's not the fate that we are all dreaming of.